Before we dive into today's subject, let me use this opportunity to share or to state that Doppler Films Spoken Opinion series is all about history. Whether you are a dedicated fan of our channel or you simply have a passion for history, we've got something special for you here. Our documentaries, our movies, our interviews on topical and contemporary issues, our music videos, and many more offer a wide range of content to spark your interest, no matter your persuasion. In the Spoken Opinion segment, we focus on analyzing history through the lenses of the works of experts on the subject we are dealing with at that particular time in that video, making connections with current events as they happen in the country and fostering discussions about the way forward for us as a nation. We also share fascinating stories and significant moments from our past as a people. So today, I would advise you grab your jar of coffee and your bowl of popcorn and join us as we dive into today's subject together. In response to a particular feedback from the previous episode of our Spoken Opinion series, a viewer asked if unsolved murders only occurred under the IBB regime. While it is true that unsolved murders were a notable feature of the Babangida era, they are not exclusive to Babangida government alone. Assassinations, particularly those with political motivations, involve the deliberate killing of prominent individuals, often political leaders, to achieve specific goals. These acts are typically carried out by powerful individuals, political groups, or even governments of the day for various reasons, such as removing political rivals or critics, creating a climate of fear to discourage dissent, or sending a very strong message to others. For government, the assassination of opposition figures is a grave violation of human rights and democratic principles. Such actions undermine the rule of law, create a climate of fear, and stifle political dissent. In Nigeria, there have been numerous theories and speculations about international conspiracies behind assassinations since 1960. Some believe that foreign interest groups may have played a role in some of these events to maintain their influence and control over Nigeria's resources and political landscape. Although the execution of the late Ogoni activist Ken Saro-Wiwa of blessed memory does not necessarily fall under unsolved murders or political assassinations, it remains one of Nigeria's most prominent examples of an internationally motivated conspiracy killing that aims to grant foreign interest groups access to our resources. So in response to that feedback from our previous video about unsolved murders under IBB regime, we are going to be using this particular video to look at some of the prominent or most famous unsolved murders in Nigeria's history since 1960, since our independence. But before we proceed on this subject we're about to handle today, if you have not already subscribed to our YouTube channel or followed our various social media platforms, I appeal to you to do so if you find value in our videos. Please use the handle now showing on the screen to hit the subscribe button, give a thumbs up to this video, share your opinion in the comment section, and help us spread the word about Doppler Films by sharing our videos far and wide. Please try and ensure that at least two people in your contact have access or through you come to see our videos. The handle on display on the screen right now is the same for all our social media. It's also the same for our YouTube channel. And for those of you who have already subscribed and follow us, we say a very big thank you. We'll continue to bring out content that will be educative, informative, and entertaining at the same time. On October 19, 1986, under General Ibrahim Badamashi Babangida's government, Nigeria witnessed one of its most poignant and high-profile assassinations. That is the brutal killing of Dele Giwa, a fearless journalist and co-founder of Newswatch newspaper. Dele Giwa was only 39 years old when he was killed. Giwa's life was tragically cut short by a parcel bomb delivered to his Lagos home. Allegedly, he had received a call from a top official of the Babangida regime informing him of an impending package from the presidency. That fateful day, Giwa was in his study with his colleague Kayode Soyinka. When Giwa opened the parcel, a violent explosion ensued. Soyinka narrowly escaped death, though he was left with a blasted eardrum, while Giwa sustained fatal injuries and succumbed to death in the hospital later. Though the Babangida regime denied any involvement, many analysts believe that the government orchestrated the murder. Giwa was an outspoken critic of the Babangida military government, which seized power in a palace coup in 1985. His relentless investigative journalism and fearless reporting on controversial subjects, including allegations linking Babangida and his wife to drug trafficking, rendered him a target. Dele Giwa's death sent shockwaves through the journalism world and remains an unsolved case in Nigeria. His legacy of courage and truth-telling endures 39 years after his death. Despite the efforts of late human rights activist Chief Gadifa-Weyimi, who pursued the matter at the Truth Commission panel led by the late Justice Oputa, an inquiry where General Babangida famously refused to appear despite many invitations, even with the presence of then-sitting President Obasanjo, Giwa's killers remain unidentified and his murder unsolved. Dele Giwa's story is a haunting testament to the enduring struggle for truth and justice in Nigeria. His voice may have been silenced, but his ideals continues to resonate, inspiring new generations to champion the cause of fearless journalism and transparency. One of the many questions on the lips of many analysts is what has happened to the panel which President Muhammadu Buhari set up in 2016 to uncover the assassins who took the life of Chief Dikibo and Bola Ige. It has been 21 years since Dikibo, the then vice chairman, South of the ruling People's Democratic Party, PDP at the time, was assassinated. Yet the killers have not been found. Apart from succeeding the late Chief Ari Marshal as PDP Deputy National Chairman, South, Chief Dikibo also succeeded Chief Marshal in being assassinated by unknown gunmen, unknown killers. Towards the end of 2002, a bitterly fought PDP presidential primary was ongoing, though not many Nigerians knew about it. While Atiku Abubakar was fighting to be retained as the vice president, the late Dr. Alex Badeh, the Second Republic vice president to the late President Shehu Shagari, was testing the waters, trying to deny former President Olusegun Obasanjo the chance to contest for a second term. Analysts say Ekweme had hidden his desire to contest for the presidency until just before the December 2002 World Press Conference, where he made the announcement. Presidential ambition was so well hidden that not many believed it when some insiders reported the news before it broke. When the fact stared Obasanjo in the face that a majority of the governors were keeping the support of their delegates from him, the primaries were less than 48 hours away before he got to know of this. Obasanjo was said to have had the plan to dump Vice President Atiku Abubakar as his deputy. Seeing he was on the verge of losing his fight to be re-elected or to be renominated as PDP presidential candidate for the April 2003 election, he returned to Atiku to beg for his support. It was a political masterstroke. Ekweme had kept the position of Vice President open for Atiku, and if he refused, he would ask the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Gali Umar Nahaba, to team up with him to save Nigeria. 15 PDP governors, led by the then Delta State Governor Chief James Ibori, including the Abia State Governor Dr. Orji Uzor-Kalu, Adamawa State Governor Boni Aruna, and Edo State Governor Lucky Benedio, were said to be at the forefront of the governors who wanted President Obasanjo dumped, according to analysts. The Masterly campaign had been pursued most discreetly and strategically, so strategically that Obasanjo had no chance of fighting back, because he even got to know about it at the dying minutes, where he could do practically nothing about it other than to go back to Atiku and beg him to team up with him. Then suddenly the PDP settled the matter. The battle was over. With Atiku back on the ticket with Obasanjo, it looked plausible that Atiku would be a natural successor to Obasanjo in 2007. So often, this is the narrative or the story that has been told about the 2003 PDP presidential primary. But one great man had often been left out anytime this intriguing story is being told, and that man was the man that is known as A.K. Dikibo. Until he moved, the situation had remained fluid. As Obasanjo went around that Friday evening during the night just prior to the primaries, visiting top delegates at their convention ground, there was a great man by his side, and that man was Dikibo, like I earlier said. Insider accounts said that before Dikibo joined Obasanjo's corner, he had told him point blank, and I quote, "President Obasanjo, I will work for you this time, but this is the last time I will support you. Next time, I will support Atiku." End of quote. This was Dikibo's statement to Obasanjo. It was said that it was not Atiku who won over most of the governors who decided to later support Obasanjo, but it was Dikibo who did, and not Atiku. But wait a minute, why would Dikibo tell Obasanjo that next time I would not work for you, I will work for Atiku? After all, Obasanjo was contesting for a second and final term as a president, and the Nigerian constitution only specified 2 terms for a president. So why would Dikibo make such a statement? The implication of the statement, according to analysts, is that Dikibo already knew of his desire to pursue a 3rd-term agenda even before the matter became public knowledge. He already knew, and analysts says, or insiders say, that is why he told Obasanjo point blank that I won't work for you next time, but I will work for Atiku. Meaning, I won't work for you when you want to pursue your 3rd-term agenda. And remember, Obasanjo denied the 3rd-term agenda, even though there were allegations that time that they were Ghana must go, flying all around to try to bribe stakeholders into supporting the agenda. Dikibo was by this time himself nursing the idea of becoming PDP national chairman. And if a Southerner became the PDP national chairman, then naturally the presidency would swing to the north. And that would have meant no 3rd term for President Obasanjo. The PDP National Convention was held on January 6, 2003. And on February 4, 2004, Dikibo was assassinated. Just to add a little detail, Ibori had convened a South-South political summit in Asaba at the time, in furtherance of a South-South interest, especially that a South-South son or daughter should be president come 2007. This same Ibori would later be jailed on accusation of corruption, and Jonathan would later become the South-South son who will become president of Nigeria. Some analysts say Dikibo was warned by a certain governor that he shouldn't toe the line he was towing as at the time he was towing that line, but that he discarded or refused to take it to that warning, and that he was actually on his way to Ibori summit when his killers ensured he was unable to disobey the warning of the governor who warned him to stay away. They said he flew into Port Harcourt, the River State capital, and hopped into a car to make its way to Asaba by road. Some analysts say the assassin killed more than Dikibo that day when they fired bullets at him. They said those killers killed the last real push of the people of the Niger Delta region to peacefully speak with one voice in the person of Dikibo. A day or two after Dikibo was assassinated, Obasanjo announced in Lagos that Dikibo was felled by armed robbers. But analysts say the man was shot execution style. The bullet, they say, entered from beneath the right-hand side of his jaw, escaped from his head, and hit the roof of the car. It is curious how armed robbers could have so shot a man who refused to stop for them on the highway. They should have shot straight at him, hitting his face or any side. But the way the bullet went, it couldn't have been armed robbers who were shooting a hit-and-run vehicle. In a letter, Dr. Oji Uzokanu would later recall, "I am further worried because the late A.K. Dikibo complained to Governor DSP Alemasia of Bayelsa State and myself at the Port Harcourt airport 3 days before his brutal assassination that some powerful persons in the presidency and a governor from one of the South-South states of the country were planning to kill him. Though he looked ruffled and agitated, we never knew his death was imminent." End of quote. This was what Oji Uzokanu said soon after Dikibo was killed. The leadership of the People's Democratic Party at the time, through its national chairman, Audu Ogbe, insisted that there was a nest of killers who existed in the polity at the time of President Obasanjo's presidency. Dikibo made the supreme price. Till today, his death remains unsolved and his killers remains at large. In 1990, Brigadier General Dele Giwa died mysteriously in Abuja. According to an official report, he was killed by a hit-and-run driver, but the family was not allowed to carry out a postmortem to ascertain the causes of his death after the hit-and-run that the government or the official line said was the cause of the death. Considering the political climate of the times, it was easy for analysts to point accusing fingers in the government direction because the government blatantly refused to allow the family to conduct an autopsy up till this very moment. The death of Brigadier Lasso still remains unsolved. On November 12, 1995, James Calto, a journalist and former writer with the Tell and Tempo magazines respectively, was abducted and murdered. He was believed to be one of the many victims of General Sani Abacha's brutal military junta. His death remains a mystery. Mr. Calto, a bold and courageous journalist, just like his counterpart Dele Giwa, who was murdered almost 10 years earlier, was also killed in a bomb blast at Dover Hotels in Kaduna under inexplicable circumstances. Now, there were conflicting accounts at the time of the killing. In September 2022, his wife asked the federal government of Muhammadu Buhari to reopen the probe into his death. Calto's death is one of the many unsolved murders in Nigeria's history. By far the most painful, personally for me, of all the unsolved murders in Nigeria is that of Kudirat Abiola. Born in 1951 in Zaria, Kaduna State, Kudirat Abiola was a beacon of hope and resilience. She attended Muslim Girls High School in Dipo Dina, Ogun State. According to an online blog, legit.com, Kudirat did not attend university, but she was married to a business mogul and the winner of the annual June 12, 1993 presidential elections, Chifemke Abiola, at the tender age of 18. Remarkably, we were told that Kudirat used her bride price to pay for the education of her two younger siblings after her marriage. Kudirat was one of several wives of the late politician. Driven by her humble beginning and personal experiences, Kudirat championed numerous social causes that was aimed at bringing change to the downtrodden in this country, and was also a very successful businesswoman. Despite the courts setting free all those alleged to have murdered her, the pain of her loss still lingers. Kudirat had led a very private life until the military annulled the June 12, 1993 presidential elections, which her husband had won. This event thrust her into the pro-democracy movement. Despite the imminent danger, Kudirat provided clear leadership during the period of confusion following the annulment of the election. She stepped forward, convinced that the military's action violated Nigerians' fundamental right to elect their own government. Her participation inspired a new level of activism in Nigeria's pro-democracy movement. Alhaja Kudirat mobilized market women, students, activists, and the human rights community to fight for democracy. She played a pivotal role in moving and sustaining the oil workers' 12-month-long strike, led by the famous activist of blessed memory, Chief Frank Kokori. This strike, the longest in Africa's history by oil workers, succeeded in isolating and weakening the government of General Sani Abacha. In December 1995, when the pro-democracy group decided to march for freedom in Lagos, Kudirat joined esteemed nationalists like Anthony Enahoro of blessed memory at the forefront, braving government forces' bullets. Her fight was primarily for her husband's release and the restoration of his mandate, annulled by General Ibrahim Badamashi Babangida in 1993. While Kudirat championed the cause against the military dictatorship, her husband was in jail on charges of treason. Her actions made her the biggest foe of the military government. On June 4, 1996, just days before June 12th anniversary, Kudirat's life was extinguished by the assailants' bullets. She was attacked in her car by unknown gunmen, allegedly on the orders of the military government of the late General Sani Abacha. Hamza Al-Mustafa, one of the prime suspects in the murder, walks free today after the appeal court in Lagos reversed the death sentence passed on him and others by a Lagos High Court. At the time of her death, an anti-military rule radio named Radio Democracy had been created and was then based in Norway. The radio station's name was later changed to Radio Kudirat. Reports indicate that she was murdered on Tuesday, June 4, 1996, around 3 p.m. when a white Mercedes-Benz was cruising along the streets of Lagos. The car slowed down in Ikeja when her assailants suddenly opened fire, gunning her down. They had been trailing her all along, and they had been trailing her for days. The bullets lodged in her her forehead, smashing her brain. About 4 shots were reportedly fired at her. One hit the driver in the mouth and crossed to his shoulder. Another struck Kudirat right on the forehead. She was rushed to Eko Hospital in Ikeja, Lagos, but all efforts by the medical team to save her life failed. Kudirat Abiola died with a gaping bullet wound on her forehead. Her driver also did not survive. While she and her driver died, her personal assistant left the car unhurt. Accused of being behind her death, late General Sani Abacha later announced an award of $45,000 to anyone who could provide information on Kudirat's killers. It was learned that the killer squad infiltrated the Abiola family security network through Alhaji Lateef Shofolanho. That's Kudirat Abiola's personal assistant. This may explain why he was spared by the assailants, even though he was in the vehicle when the bullets were fired at the vehicle. Prior to this, there had been 2 attempts to assassinate Kudirat. Investigations into the killing allegedly traced the killer's bullet to the personal armory of Major Mustafa, former chief security officer to the late dictator General Sani Abacha. After Abacha's death, Mustafa was arrested and tried for the murder and attempted murder of Alhaji Kudirat Abiola. In October 1998, Major Mustafa appeared in court with the previous president Abacha's son, Mohammed, charged with the murder of Kudirat. In court, Mohammed Abdul, also known as Katako, a prosecution witness, narrated how Kudirat's personal assistant betrayed her to the assailants. He said Shofolanho identified many houses of other personalities that were marked for elimination. He further told the court how Mohammed Abacha gave him and another member of the strike force $10,000 each to flee the country when investigations commenced during the Olusegun Obasanjo's administration on various political assassinations. Bamei, Dambaba, Mustafa, Yakubu, and Rabo Lawal were all charged to a Lagos High Court in the year 2000 for the same offense. Sergeant Rogers, also known as Barnabas Igwe, confessed that the contract to eliminate Kudirat was given by Major Hamza al-Mustafa to Rabo Lawal, who was in charge of the mobile police force at the presidential villa at the time. Rogers also said that the killer team was provided with rifles completed with silencers and cash for the operation, all in the presence of Mohammed Abacha, son of the late head of state. Rogers said he was sent to kill 3 times, but succeeded with killing Kudirat Abiola, while he failed with the assassination plot of Nadeko chieftains like Ibrahim Adesanya and Alex Badeh of Guardian newspaper. On the 30th of January 2012, a Lagos High Court convicted Major Mustafa and Lateef Shofolanho for Kudirat's murder. They were sentenced to death by hanging, but were discharged and acquitted by the Appeal Court, Lagos Division, on July 12, 2013. Despite her tragic death, Kudirat Abiola remains a symbol of Nigeria's struggle. In 1998, a street corner in New York was renamed Kudirat Abiola Corner, despite protests by the then government of the country of Nigeria. A documentary titled The Supreme Price details the story of how both Kudirat Abiola and her husband paid a terrible price in their quest for a better, freer, and more equitable and just Nigeria. The documentary tells the story from Kudirat Abiola's daughter's perspective, that is Aisha Asfat's perspective, and includes interviews with Walter Carrington, former U.S. ambassador to Nigeria, and Nobel Prize winning writer Professor Wole Soyinka. On July 27, 2006, Nigeria was rocked by the brutal assassination of Funsho Williams, a prominent politician and gubernatorial candidate, found bound, strangled, and stabbed in his home in Dolphin Estate, Ikoyi, Lagos. His death remains one of the most high-profile unsolved murders in the country. The following day, 2 individuals were arrested in connection with his death: his campaign manager and Senator Kingsley Adeseye Ogunlewe, a former works minister who was also vying for the PDP gubernatorial candidacy. The early 2000s, particularly under President Obasanjo's administration, were a dark era in Nigeria's politics. It was a time when political assassinations were rampant and evil walked the streets of Nigeria unchecked. The late human rights lawyer Gani Fawayemi's son described this period as the darkest and the saddest in Nigeria's history. According to Fawayemi, what we have been witnessing is not democracy by politicians, but a mindless display of craziness years by members of the political class, and unless quickly checked, the democratic edifice will surely collapse, and we would have ourselves to blame for the unprecedented flow of blood that will follow." End of quote. Between 1999 and 2006, there were about 30 reported cases of assassinations and attempts in different parts of Nigeria. Many believe Funsho Williams would have succeeded Bola Tinubu as governor of Lagos State, who was rounding up his second term at that time. Williams was a thoroughbred gentleman and could best be described as a true Omoluabi. His cool and calm demeanor, along with his record of success in public service, earned him admiration and respect among the Lagos populace. In an interview with The Punch in July 2013, his second son, Babatunde, described him as a very private person, very dedicated to his job, a very quiet man, and a loving father. Funsho Williams was born in Lagos on May 9, 1948, and had his primary and secondary education in Lagos. He contested in the governorship primaries of the Alliance for Democracy (AD) against Tinubu in 1998 and reportedly won, but was besieged by party leaders to step down for Tinubu, who won the governorship elections in 1999. This is believed to be due to Tinubu's contribution to the June 12, 1993 struggle, while Williams was said to have been part of the oppressive military regime, but moved to PDP to run against Tinubu. Before then, he was a member of the United Nigerian Congress Party, UNCP, the dominant political party that endorsed former military dictator General Sani Abacha to run for president in the August 1998 presidential election, which never held due to Abacha's death in June of the same year. A civil engineering graduate from the University of Lagos with a second degree from the New Jersey Institute of Technology, United States, Funsho Williams would later run for governor under the PDP in 2003, while Tinubu ran for a second term. But he would lose to the incumbent, pulling 725,000 votes against Tinubu's 911,000 votes. On June 30, 2014, the court acquitted 6 suspects: Bulama, Kolo, Musa, Meina, David Cassidy, Sonani, Mustapha Kayode, and Okunwasa, all of them standing trial over Williams' death. Williams left behind his wife Hilda Williams and their 4 kids. 19 years later, many Nigerians are still puzzled by the question, who killed Funsho Williams, as no one has been brought to book ever since. Barnabas Igwe, chairman of the Nigerian Bar Association Onitsha branch, Anambra State, and his pregnant wife were brutally murdered by a group of armed men as they returned from an evening outing. They were dragged out of their car and dealt several machete blows before being shot. Their assailants deliberately drove over their bodies before disappearing from the scene to ensure that they were brutally killed in the most horrendous manner. The deceased lawyer had been very critical of then Governor Mbadinuju's government over the arrears of salaries owed to state workers and for operating anti-crime vigilante outfit known as the Bakassi Boys. The NBA in Onitsha, the biggest and the most active NBA branch in Anambra State at the time, had just issued a 21-day ultimatum to the state government to pay the backlog of salaries owed to judiciary workers, state legislative staffs, teachers and civil servants, or face the consequences as at that time. In the year leading up to the attack on the Igwes, Anambra had become the most gravely mismanaged of Nigeria's 36 states. Unpaid teachers were on strike for the full school year. All the state civil servants and court workers had been on strike for many months as well. The State Bar Association accused the leaders of pocketing the money meant to pay the striking workers, and just before Barnabas Igwe and his wife were killed, demanded that the governor resign from office. What was the outcome? Barnabas Igwe and his wife were brutally murdered, and as I speak to you till today, the death of that couple still remains unsolved murders. In remembrance of their son and brother, Zakari Mohammed, the family of the late former Nigerian head of state, General Murtala Mohammed, who himself was assassinated while in office, expressed profound discontent with the prosecution of murder trials in Nigeria. Zakari Mohammed, a 27-year-old finance graduate of the University of Canterbury in Kent, met a tragic end on his way from Abuja, where he had gone for a private visit to the State House on August 13, 1993, when he was fatally shot. Dr. Aisha Mohammed Oyebode made the family's position known at the 30th anniversary of Zakari Mohammed's untimely death held in Lagos. Mohammed Oyebode lamented, "Precisely 3 decades ago, the life of our cherished brother was cut short. Even though the perpetrators were positively identified, all efforts to prosecute the case failed during the preliminary investigation and arraignment phase." End of quote. Recalling the distressing circumstances surrounding Zakari's death, or surrounding Zakari's tragic demise, Mohammed Oyebode criticized the case's management, stating that the entire procedure was shrouded in confusion and the ultimate conclusion was a glaring miscarriage of justice. And I can assure you that this case being shrouded in utmost confusion is just because the killers, those who connived or contrived the killing, are trying to protect the killers. 30 years after, Oyebode is the elder sister to the late Zakari, and she suggested that to put a stop to similar development in the future, legislation that protects the rights of victims, a law that reflects the spirit of our nation, should be enacted for Nigerians. She also said that the establishment of such a legal framework will guarantee comprehensive protection for victims throughout the complex corridors of the criminal justice system of Nigeria. There are allegations that Zakari was being asked to help the government of the day liquidate a man who was like a father to him and other members of his family, a task that he blatantly refused to be part of, and this was said to be the reason why he was killed. Rewane's full name at birth was Ogbeyiwa Erewarone. He was born in Warri to the family of Jemide Erewarone. His father was a trader based in Agbo, and when his father was away from Warri, Rewane stayed with his religious uncle, who gave him the name Alfred. In the 1970s, Rewane promoted a series of businesses in Sapele in partnership with Seaboard Corporations of the United States. The companies included Live Flour Mills, West African Shrimps, and Top Feeds. In the 1990s, Rewane's residence in Lagos became the venue for political meetings that led to the formation of NADECO. He was known as a major financier of the group, which was vocal in its opposition to the military regime of General Sani Abacha. On October 6, 1995, the 79-year-old was murdered in cold blood in his residence in the Ikeja area of Lagos State. The Nigerian police arrested 7 persons in connection with Alfred Rewane's murder, but 5 of the suspects died while in detention. The remaining 2 were freed based on weak evidences from the prosecution, according to the judge. Up to this very moment, the death of that 79-year-old man, who was, all things being equal, close to his grave as at the time they pumped bullets into him, is still unsolved, even as we speak. On March 5, 2003, just a month before the April 19, 2003 presidential and general elections, Chief Marshal Ari was assassinated at his residence in Abuja. The brutal murder was met with condemnations from human rights groups and top politicians. Before his assassination, Chief Marshal Ari was a national leader of the defunct All Nigerian People's Party, that is ANPP. He was from Rivers State. His large political followership from the South was very intimidating. He mobilized the region to vote for President Olusegun Obasanjo during the February 27, 1999 presidential elections. However, Chief Marshal decamped from the PDP to the ANPP and joined General Muhammadu Buhari's campaign trail to rescue Nigeria from what he called the woeful performance of Chief Olusegun Obasanjo. Chief Marshal Ari publicly declared that the people of the South would not vote for President Olusegun Obasanjo but for General Muhammadu Buhari of the ANPP. His declaration scared his political opponents, especially the presidency. After the ANPP convention, and with everything set for the moving ANPP campaign trail, On the 9th of March 5, 2003, some gunmen stormed Chief Marshal Ari's house in Abuja. Unable to penetrate the house, they broke through the roof and killed the chief in the presence of his daughter. The then Nigerian police force, under Mr. Tafa Balogun, paraded armed robbers at the force headquarters in Abuja as the killers of Chief Marshal Ari. However, his daughter dismissed the police claim and admitted that before the gunmen killed their father on March 5, 2003, they remarked, "You said Buhari for president, Abi? That's a joke." General Muhammad Buhari would later lose that election after that killing to President Olusegun Obasanjo. Even though Buhari later became Nigeria's president after Obasanjo's 8-year rule, analysts say he did little or nothing to remember the families and relatives of his old political allies who struggled to actualize his presidential ambition, even though some of them lost their lives in the process. People like Chief Ari Marshal, people like Chuba Okadibo, people like Ibrahim Taha, and many more who paid with their blood to push Buhari's presidential ambition to a successful end. There are reports that eyewitnesses claim that as a result of the gunshot, Marshal Ari's intestines were pulled out, having been shot in the stomach by the assassins. The suspected assassins were said to have fled when they heard the sound of an oncoming vehicle. It was the vehicle of one of the chief's neighbor who was returning home at about 4 a.m. that fateful day. The assassins were said to have fled through the residence back door. The leadership of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, at the time had this to say about the death of Chief Ari Marshal. Coming at the critical moment in our march to a successful civilian transition, a dastardly act capable of blowing sky high the entire democratic exercise has indeed been committed with the assassination of Dr. Marshal. End of quote. But as I speak to you today, no single person has been brought to book relating to Ari's murder. Dipo Dina was born on July 5, 1960. He was a Nigerian politician, philanthropist, administrator, community leader, and a chartered accountant from Ogun State. He had a secondary school education at the Baptist Academy in Lagos before going to the University of Lagos, where he earned his first degree in accounting and later on an MSc in finance. He became a chartered accountant in 1984 and subsequently founded and until his death became or was a senior partner at Dele Giwa and Co., an accounting firm. Dipo ventured into active politics in 2003 and became the Ogun State governorship candidate in the 2007 election after joining the defunct Action Congress, AC. He was reported to have awarded bursaries to about 400 students in the state annually, and during his governorship campaign in 2007, about 4 million free exercise books were given to primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions in the state. He founded Ogunet, a non-governmental organization, to execute his political programs. On January 25, 2010, on his way to his home on Dolphin Estates, Ikoyi, Dipo was abducted and taken in another car to an unknown destination where he was assassinated. The assailants reportedly spared the lives of 2 other passengers, including his driver, who were driving with him in the car as at when he was abducted. As of now, Dipo's killers have yet to be identified. The Otumba Dipo Dina International Stadium in Ijebu-Ode was named in his honor by former governor Ibikunle Amosun. Eunice Olawale was a Nigerian Christian preacher who was brutally murdered by suspected extremists in the early hours of July 9, 2016, while evangelizing in the streets of Abuja. Born on July 23, 1974, Eunice was a deaconess at the Divine Touch Parish of the Redeemed Christian Church of God and a devoted mother of 7. An indigene of Ekiti State, she had been married to her husband, Elisha Olawale, from Ondo State since 2010. Described by her husband as hardworking, God-fearing, and supportive, Eunice was also known by others as a humble woman and a passionate preacher. Every morning at 5 a.m., Eunice would leave her home to evangelize in what is commonly referred to as the morning cry. Days before her gruesome murder, she overheard nearby individuals commenting that she should be chased away. Another conversation from a mosque behind their house, implied that her preaching wasn't the truth about God. Concerned, she informed her husband, who cautioned her to be very careful. Eunice suspended her daily morning evangelism for about a week, but soon resumed her mission. On July 9, 2016, Eunice left her house at the usual time to preach. According to several media reports, she was murdered between 5 a.m. and 5:30 a.m. Accounts differed on the exact manner of her death. Some reports stated that she was beheaded and stabbed, while others mentioned that she was stabbed multiple times in the stomach and leg before bleeding to death. Witnesses heard her screaming, blood of Jesus," as she was being attacked, and her lifeless body was found lying in a pool of her own blood, with her megaphone, Bible, and mobile phone by her side. Eunice's gruesome murder sparked outrage on social media, especially among Nigerians, revealing deep divides among religious lines. The state of religious tolerance in the country became a significant concern at that time. 6 suspects were arrested in connection with the murder, and many residents living near the area moved away for fear of being arrested as suspects. Christians were urged to protect themselves, especially while evangelizing. The wife of the then Vice President, Mrs. Oshibanjo, and Pastor E. Adeboye of the Redeemed Christian Church of God paid condolence visits to the family of Eunice. Her burial was put on hold until further investigations could reveal the perpetrators and bring them to justice. Eunice's murder did not deter other preachers. One was reported to continue her morning preaching at the exact same spot where Eunice was murdered. The Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, and the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, PFN, gave the Nigerian police force a 14-day ultimatum to conduct a thorough investigation into the murder of Eunice and bring the perpetrators to justice. Even as at the time of making this video, Eunice's death remains unresolved, and her murder remains unsolved, and her killers remains elusive to justice.
Who killed Bola Ige? The government killed him. The government killed Bola Ige. I said so, I'm clear.
The government
killed him.
It was a state murder?
It was a state murder.
On December 23, 2021, Nigeria was shaken by the brutal assassination of Chief Bola Ige, the former Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation. His murder remains one of Nigeria's most high-profile unsolved cases. Chief Bola Ige was a prominent politician and lawyer, celebrated for his unwavering advocacy for civil rights and democracy. On that fateful night, gunmen brazenly entered his Ibadan home and shot him, despite the presence of security personnel. The circumstances surrounding his death have fueled countless speculation and theories, yet no one has been convicted or brought to book for this heinous crime. His assassination occurred during President Olusegun Obasanjo's administration, and it was widely believed to be politically motivated. The failure to bring his killers to justice has left an indelible mark on Nigeria's political landscape and continues to haunt his family and supporters. In an article dated December 23, 2021, one Deborah Eibayo wrote in Sahara Reporters that although Bola Ige had contested the presidency of Nigeria on the platform of the Alliance for Democracy AD in 1999 and lost, Olusegun Obasanjo, who emerged from the general elections later on as the president, later appointed Bola Ige as Minister of Mines and Power before moving him to the position of Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation. Bola Ige was on the cusp of taking up a new role as Africa's representative on the United Nations International Law Commission when he was gunned down in his Ibadan home in Oyo State. 2 years ago, Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka remarked, in quote, "We have a phenomenon of unsolved murders, and we know for a fact some of them are the result of corrupt forces. A notorious example, a former Attorney General and Minister of Justice in this country, Bola Ige, was assassinated in his bedroom. He was killed, by the forces of corruption. And so, this compels one to ask what has happened to the investigation ordered by the President of the country into those high-profile murders. If we do not solve some of these murders, we cannot get into the heart, into the core of the corruption in this country. And this involves also the authorized and the constitutional agency of open society, such as the judiciary." End of quote. Before his death, Bola Ige had been embroiled in internal conflicts with his political party and had a serious ongoing feud with Iyiola Omishore, then Deputy Governor of Osun State. Naturally, this led to fingers being pointed at Omishore as being responsible for the murder. After a fracas in which a group loyal to Omishore attacked Ige at the palace in Ile-Ife, Omishore was quoted as saying, "Bola Ige came on radio here to insult me and my family." That is his last one. He was beaten yesterday. The people of Ife beat him up, and he was crying as a baby as he removed his cap and glasses. End of quote. A week after the attack on Bola Ige at the Ooni's palace, he was killed. Omishore, along others, was arrested and arraigned before an Oyo State High Court as part of the suspected killers of the former Attorney General, but was later released for lack of evidence. Bisi Akonde, who was governor of Osun State at the time Omishore was deputy governor and had serious disagreement with Omishore, a disagreement that even led to the death of a member of the State House of Assembly, wrote in his autobiography, "There was enough evidence that the government of President Obasanjo was reluctant to find the killers of Bola Ige." End of quote. Bisi Akonde later insisted that Obasanjo's administration was bent on sweeping the murder of the Attorney General under the carpet. Bola Ige had been described as one of the brightest stars of the Yoruba people. To those who described him as such, it is their duty to focus on Bola Ige's life because, as they say, his legacy lives on. Ige's death disorganized his family to the extent that his widow also died not long after her husband's death. Known as Alex Badeh, he was an officer of the Nigerian Air Force who served as the 18th Chief of Air Staff and the 15th Chief of Defense Staff of Nigeria. Tragically, he died from gunshot injury sustained after his vehicle was attacked by unknown gunmen along the Abuja-Kefi Road on Tuesday, December 18, 2018. Badeh was the commander of the presidential fleet during the Olusegun Obasanjo presidency. The presidential fleet crew flew around the world frequently, and by 2002, Badeh had logged over 6,000 flying hours, shuttling VIPs, dignitaries, top government officials, and heads of states. He was given the green light to fly former United States presidents Bill Clinton and Jimmy Carter on different occasions after an extensive check by the United States Secret Service. Badeh's professional dexterity on duty earned him a commendation and an autographed pen from Kofi Annan, the then United Nations Secretary General, after flying him on an official trip. While serving as Chief of Air Staff, Badeh initiated and completed several key projects. He launched a partnership with the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NIMASA, to curtail illegal maritime activities by providing aerial security support for the agency, a hugely successful operation. During military operations against terror in northeastern Nigeria, there was a need to feed the public with accurate and timely news. Therefore, Badeh established a military radio station that enabled the Nigerian military to tell its own side of events on subjects of security orientation and information. In February 2016, Badeh was accused of financial misappropriation by the EFCC during his tenure as service chief. In response, Badeh denied involvement in any misconduct. In October 2014, Boko Haram fighters briefly occupied Bintim, that's Badeh's hometown, taking lives and destroying properties. His cousin, who lived next door to his house, was killed during the attack. The terrorists also burned down Badeh's house and the hospital he built for the community. It was widely reported in the media that the defense chief sent a helicopter to evacuate his parents before the attack, even though records show that he actually lost his father in the 70s and his mother in 2013. Following Badeh's killing, President Muhammadu Buhari ordered a comprehensive investigation and the arrest of suspects. But despite the assurance by the then president, despite all the commentaries we saw in the newspapers in those days, at that time, as we speak up to today, the killing of Badeh still remains an unsolved murder in Nigeria. Comrade Olaitan Oyerinde, as he was fondly called, was the principal private secretary to then Edo State Governor, Comrade Adams Oshomole. He was murdered at about 1 a.m. on Friday, May 4, 2012, when unknown gunmen pumped bullets into his head, chest, and stomach in his house at 2nd Ugbo Street in Benin City, Edo State, in the presence of his wife and in-law. He reportedly died in the hands of his fellow activist and friend, Reverend David Ugolo. Some days later, the police made a controversial arrest arrest of Ugolo, a well-acknowledged critic of the federal government on issues of impunity and corruption. Ugolo accused the federal government of framing him and challenged his detention in court. He duly obtained acquittal as well as a 5 million naira compensation against the Nigerian police after the court affirmed his innocence. An inconsolable Oshomole was not just burdened by the gruesome killing of an aide who had served him from his days as the NLC chairman or president and whom he fondly called my son. He also began to see his effort to find the killers stiffly resisted by, among other things, the competitive, contentious and conflicting reports of the police and the DSS, leading to the detention of two different groups of suspected killers of Oyeride, despite a 10 million naira offer for information. Unsurprisingly, many years after the murder, those who killed Oyeride are yet to be prosecuted. While the police initially paraded Ugolo and 8 other suspects for the murder, the SSS paraded a gang of 6 different suspects for the same murder days after. The abnormality did not escape the attention of then Governor Oshomole, who, in a statement from Edo State Government House, said, like every other Nigerian, the governor is extremely worried about the claims of 2 federal security agencies, which, no matter what anyone says, at the end of the day, one of the arms must clearly be playing out a script designed to shield the actual killers and or their sponsors and make it fit into the unbelievable record of unresolved politically motivated murder cases in the country, which Mr. President Dr. Goodluck Jonathan has denounced publicly when he ordered the security agencies in unmistakable terms to fish out the killers of Comrade Oyeride. End of quote. Today, as I speak, the death of Oyeride remains an unsolved murder. You see, all these and many more cases are just a few of the unsolved murders that Nigeria has become. And if you look at the kind of injustice, the kind of atrocities happening in Nigeria, today you come to understand that Nigeria is tending to become a vast crime scene. The moral imperative is on the current administration of President Bola Ige to address these unsolved murders by not only reopening some of these cases or all of these cases, but by bringing justice to the victims and their families. This is crucial for the healing of the victims' family and restoring public trust. It will also send a very powerful message that no one is above the law and that this government is not given to impunity, that it is committed to accountability and transparency. I think all cases of unsolved murders should be declassified because Nigerians have a right to know, for example, how Abiola or the true story behind the death of Abiola, the true story behind the death of Abacha, the true story behind the death of Bola Ige, and many more unsolved murders in the country. Because this will also help deter future violence and create a safer environment for all Nigerians. It will not just be about solving the past crimes, it will also be about building a more just and an equitable society moving forward.
If you've enjoyed this video and like to see more content like this, please help support our growth by giving a thumbs up, subscribing to our YouTube channel, following our various social media handles, and please do send us a little donation to help us continue making more content like this.